thought I'd let you guys in on a little editing secret since I'm dabbling with video editing right now. I just filmed this whole voiceover already and realized I wasn't recording it. So still getting used to some of the editing stuff. The focus is jumping around a little bit, but not as bad as it was. This is me starting off a new sketchbook because my cat decided she wanted to put her face in a cup of water and spill it all over the one that I was using, and which was my favorite one I've had so far. So that was super fun. But yeah, so this is me starting a new sketchbook. It's an Illo sketchbook. It's one of those ones that every YouTuber has used at some point. I've never tried one, so the watercolor reacts very interestingly to it. It kind of takes a second to soak in, like it sits on the top before it soaks in, so that's kind of interesting. Provides kind of a little bit of a different workflow than I was used to. In this piece, I'm actually going to be using a lot of gouache. I've been really liking it since I tried it. I like how opaque it is, I like how much control you have with it, but it also gives you those same textures that watercolor gets that I love so much. Because I really do like when it dries and you have those lines and those waves in it. I love the textures you get with watercolor. And gouache gets that, but it also gives you really good color. And I was using Winsor & Newton watercolors before, so they were pretty good watercolors. Not saying I like one over the other, but mostly I'm just kind of still trying to figure out how to work with gouache, and I'm liking it a lot so far. So yeah, right now I'm using some gouache and some watercolors here and there, and near the end you'll see me pull out some pencils. I end up using some of the chalk pencils that I have, as well as your typical I keep wanting to say, I did this in the previous one that I recorded too, I keep wanting to say watercolor pencils, but they're not, they're just your normal colored pencils. And then I'd use some fine liners for the lining as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw some music in here so I'm not talking the whole time, and I'll pop back in a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and pop back in here really quick because a couple things. One, I saw my camera was doing that thing that it does where it jumps from focusing on my hand to focusing on the paper and back again. And when my cat knocked over the water, it got on my camera, and I'm actually not able to press the buttons right now that are associated with the focus settings. And in my last video, I kind of explained that every time the camera shuts off, I have to reset the focus settings. So right now it's on autofocus, even though in the last couple videos I've been not putting it on autofocus for this reason. It's not as bad as it was, but it is worth mentioning because, yeah, my cat's water incident she had did get to my camera, and for some reason my camera's not letting me change the autofocus settings. So for right now it's fine. I don't think it's doing it as much as it used to, but eventually need to either get that looked at or potentially invest in a camera of some sort. whichever ends up happening is fine. But yeah, I just want to make sure I jump back on really quick and explain that a little bit. So now I'm going to throw it back to the music. But yeah, I think that this turned out really, really nice, and with the liner and everything, really just pulls it all together. I use a couple different liners in this one. I use microns mainly. Um, those are the ones that I really go to the most often. And as far as pencils, I have such a wide range of pencils. Some of them are the chalk pencils, which I really like because they blend out smoothly. You can hardly tell they're there. It's a good way to add just like a hint of a color. If you're not looking for super fine lines or details or anything, it's a good way to just get a hue of a color on a space. So I also use that same thing on her lips to get that kind of ombre lip look. I used a little bit of a darker purple on the edges. Um, yeah, lining is my favorite part. I think that the whole thing comes together when you line an image, especially when it's watercolor, if you do the watercolor first. Because I feel like it looks nice without the liner, but when you put the liner on it, it just changes the whole thing completely, and you're like, whoa, okay, that looks nice. So after I lined it, I was really, really happy with how this looked and turned out. It's a little hard to tell, at least for me. It's hard to tell until everything's lined if I'm gonna like it, or just kind of like it. But I actually ended up really liking this one. This turned out kind of exactly how I was planning, which never happens, except the ear thing. If I would have remembered her ears, they might not be so dark, but other than that, turned out pretty much how I wanted it to turn out. I was really happy with this. I think it's a great first drawing and the start of a new sketchbook. I just want to thank you guys for watching, whoever's out there watching right now at this point. Still pretty new, so if you feel like you would like to share and subscribe and like and all that, please do. Yeah, and I will see you guys in the next Dabble.